Hey everyone, we're back here in the shop, back in my own personal house, and we have an awesome build here today. Now I tell you, I was at the home stores looking for a good shop table, and I couldn't find anything for less than $1,000 that really fit my needs and I felt was sturdy and multi-use. So I built it myself. It was really an easy project, and what I found is I got to test a lot of my skills, such as the joinery up here on these 4x4s, and some different skills for putting together all these edges and a really nice finish. And I think this is a phenomenal project for anyone that wants to make their own workshop and have a really functional, long-lasting table that you can take with you from shop to shop. Since I made this myself, I could only make it much higher quality than you can buy, but I made it totally custom to me. So for me, I made this 38 inches tall. This is perfect for me. It's at a great height for working on anything. Especially, I can put an entire 4x8 sheet of plywood on here and cut with my track saw going across. This table is 6 feet long and just over 2 feet wide, which fits perfectly in my garage, which rolls out of the way because it's on these awesome, easy to use casters with built-in locks. This project took me just about 2 evenings after work, and it turned out beautiful. You have hardwood, white oak on top here, and everything else is built solid, including a storage room for all your materials down below. Check out this entire video. It's a bit long, but stay to the end. I'm looking for a lot of feedback on these type projects, so please leave a comment down below if you find value, and ask any questions that are going to help you build a project like this, or design your own to fit your needs perfectly. The first thing I did with this project is start up by finding some quality lumber. These 4x4s are a standard pine variety, but I went sure and choose ones with nice straight and good looking grain. And then always verify your guides. Make sure everything is 90, will make your job way easier. My goal with this project was to make things quick and simple, so I used power tools for all my joinery. What I'm doing here is creating a simple lap joint. This joint is going to have some material cut out of the 4x4s so that it can accept the 2x3 that it's going to sit below. Before cutting these joints, I cut the 4x4s to 30 inches tall. This accounts for the 4-inch wheels below and the 3/4 inch top with a little bit of spacing. Moving right along, I'm using 2x3s for the support underneath my workstation. These provide enough support and they're much more minimal and don't look bulky, giving me a great design look. Now this here gave me a little bit of trouble. I only had 1.5 inch wood screws, so I had to figure out what depth to countersink my screws with so that they went into the wood enough, but didn't protrude up into the work surface. Luckily there was only one screw that penetrated the surface a little bit, and that was easily sanded off. And then of course, for some future proofing, I went ahead and installed a 2x4 in the center for extra support. Here you can see how the lap joint cut into the 4x4s accept the 2x3 and provide a perfect surface to put my structural screws into. I'm using a beautiful product, which is a headlock 2 7/8 inch structural screw. The bottom shelf is going to be 3/4 inches less on the long side of the table and 7.5 inches less on the short side. This gives us enough room to have our feet below and stand comfortably by the table. We're working upside down, so I measured 28 inches from the top of our table. We want all the proportions to be level for this table. The lower frame was easily created with, again, 2x3s and putting some wood screws in to hold it all together. Using a small screw as a guide, I'm able to do this by myself and putting these big anchor screws. One for each corner, which really minimizes the extra hardware, especially if I want to take this apart in the future. And you have to love the star bit that's included with these, almost zero chance of stripping. Moving right along, the fun part that we get to have next is going into the 90-degree braces that are going to go on to connect the top of the table with the legs to provide additional support. Somehow I completed all this on my $200 saw that's about 10 years old. If anyone has recommendations for a good miter saw that is at an affordable price, please put it down in the comments below. I desperately need a new one. These 45-degree braces are cut at 18.5 inches long. This method of cutting relief joints and then breaking off pieces to make my miters works really well and produces pretty consistent results. I cut a nice 45-degree hole with my Forstner bit, which I used a jig for, and then I can use the same timber lock screw to lock these in with incredible strength. After cutting the two leg extensions to 18.5, you can calculate that it's 3.5 inches for the cut, or sometimes more accurate, if everything's square, just make a pencil line and you'll get perfect results almost every time. Even with my cheap sliding miter saw, I'm able to move the blade to the right position and then slide the piece safely while keeping my hands at safe distance. Make sure you wear safety glasses with this because it can get a little messy. Because I'm going to put a nice clear coat on this entire workbench, giving things a nice sand before you assemble them can be a lot easier than trying to get into the small areas after and try to sand. When using the Forstner bit, you have to have a level surface for your center of your bit to bite into. What I did was just use an offcut and screw it in so that we have a perfect 45-degree angle. Although not necessary with these type of screws, I did pre-drill all the holes just to make sure that everything went in straight and without any chance of cracking. Marking out these casters is easy, just setting them on and marking my holes. I'm going to pre-drill and then mount these with some larger wood screws, but not necessarily the headlocks. I thought these wheels were a fantastic value. At less than $7 a piece, they have locks and roll really well. Similar to my front braces, I cut these smaller braces at 13.5 inches long for the side of the supports. A little overkill here, but I use 2.5-inch structural timber lock screws to mount my side supports. Again, these are usually used for decks and can hold as much weight as lag bolts, which can be hundreds if not thousands of pounds. Everything besides the bottom plate here, which holds our wood, is complete with this one-day project of this nice 6-foot table build. I finished this in about 4 hours today. Everything from cutting the plywood to these 4x4s, 2x3s, everything's together and everything's connected with structural screws. They're just as strong as bolts, rated, and you don't need to go all the way through and worry about nuts and everything like that and using wrenches. So structural screws save you a lot of time, and it's making this thing just incredibly strong. Sanding is pretty simple, starting with 80 grit and going to 220. The last step that I'm going to have with this shop table is sand and finish. I'm going to do a nice light finish on top and maybe some dark accents on the wooden legs. This is a great project that anyone can do, both for inside or outside, and it turned out phenomenal. Thanks for joining. If this content is valuable to you, like this video, subscribe to the channel, And if you have any questions or want to see any topics in future videos, leave a comment down below. All these things help out the channel a ton and makes it worthwhile for me to invest the time in putting these videos together for you guys. Finishing this table is equally as important as the build quality. I intend to have this table around for many years, working on different projects at this home and at others. I'm going to be using a triple thick water-based polyurethane for this. The water-based polyurethane is a little more expensive than the oil-based, and you're not going to get the deep, rich color that you might want when you're working over a white or red oak. This project, I have a maple top, so I wanted to keep that beautiful golden white color that the maple provides. The great thing about water-based polyurethane is it's really easy to provide and doesn't have all the odor that a regular polyurethane would. I ended up doing 2 coats. You can see here that the first coat dried quickly within about half an hour with the heater on it. It soaks in nicely, and all you have to do is some light sanding afterward in between the coats to get rid of any grit or dust that might be on the surface. I'm using 400 grit here between so you don't get any big scratches. The second coat goes on easier than the first, with coverage not being a problem. I ended up using about half a quart for this, so really not too much. Because this is a triple thick polyurethane, I did go ahead and do a little bit of a technique here. Not sure if it's required, but what I did is brush on in multiple directions and then go from one end of the project all the way to the second end with continuous motions so that I removed any chance of having any types of streaks.